everybody. I wanted to talk today about the importance of getting your loved one on disability services when they start college. When I first attempted to do this for my son, the front desk was very, very helpful, and they put me through all the right channels and eventually said, well, bring him along, take him over to the other college, and you can meet up with the lady over there. So we did that. We finally got to sitting down with her and explain that he had schizoaffective disorder. She didn't seem to understand what it was. In fact, she seemed to think that it wasn't even a disability. And I said, well, it is a disability because he's on disability. So the government recognizes it as a disability, so he is eligible for disability services. And she made it such a hassle that my son said, forget about it, I don't want to do it. It was embarrassing to him. So what ended up happening halfway through the semester was he got really, really sick, really, really anxious. He couldn't eat. He ended up being hospitalized. And so he just quit. Now, if we'd have had disability services, we would have been able to pause his studies. So he had A's and B's, and as a result of him having to just quit, he ended up with F's and D's. So he really didn't feel like going back to college after that, which is completely understandable. Now a couple of semesters go by, and he decides, you know what, I think I want to try college again. I may have lost my financial aid, but I'm going to give it a shot. So he signs up again. My suggestion was, don't do 4 classes, do 2. It's during COVID, which is great, because it's going to be online and you don't have to deal with people. And so he starts up doing really well. He's got really good grades, plus he's got the extra credit. So both his grades are over 100%. He's enjoying the classes. And then he has another hospitalization. So at this point, I'm thinking, great, what are we going to do? Is he going to fail out again, lose his money again? He's never going to want to go back. So I contact his teachers while he's in the hospital, because he's 1013'd. And that means the state is basically taken over. If he's 1013'd, and this is if you're going to hurt yourself or hurt somebody else, they keep you until they feel like you're stable. So you don't know how long it's going to be before the release. I contact the school and his teachers, and they're very, very helpful. They say, look, hey, go through these channels. I explained the difficulty I had last time trying to get him on with disability services. So the history teacher put me in direct contact with the right person. And she said, well, of course we have to have his permission, but what we can do is if you can get in touch with him, and he can tell us over the phone that you can do all the paperwork for him, we will do all the paperwork on the computer, and I'll assist you. Well, the problem is, if your child is in a psych ward, a lot of the time you can't just call the psych ward and get a hold of them. So I had to wait for him to call me, and he was able to take down their number and be able to call them and give them permission for me to do the paperwork. So basically I filled out a sheet of paper on the computer, and then I had to have an interview, which is about 45 minutes long, in place of him and sign for him. The interview is not a big deal. Basically, the lady will just walk you through all the paperwork, tell you what you need to check off, tell you where to sign, and then you send it into her paper by paper by paper to make sure you're through it. So when I got through all of that, there was only one more thing that needed to be done. And this is when he gets out of the hospital, he had to sign one last piece of paperwork on his own. So I got to hear basically everything that they offer, and it's great. The purpose of disability services is to make sure the teachers will actually help disabled students. So say for instance the teacher didn't give them extra testing time, didn't allow them to test in the testing center, which is a quiet place, or didn't allow them to test at home, or have a reader, which is, if you're visually impaired, or have anything to do with maybe dyslexia, reading backwards, a reader will actually read the test to you. It's a software program that reads the test to you, and also it can make the font bigger. The only thing with testing is you do have to let the particular college that he's going to know 3 days in advance that they're going to need a special testing situation 3 days ahead, because they've got a lot of adjunct professors that work at different universities and they need to be able to get in touch with them. So that is one stipulation. The other things they do is they can have assigned seating. That was a big thing for my son, because he would go in and, you know, when you start in college, you've got a lot of these 18-year-olds fresh out of high school, and they are not going to respect the fact that people generally will sit in a certain seat. So you let the instructor know that you want assigned seating, and that seat will be saved for you, whether you choose the front of the class, middle of the class, or back of the class. And my son prefers the front of the class. The other thing that they won't do is they won't call on your loved one to answer questions unless they put their hand up. I did ask, can they be exempt from group projects? And that is one thing they said is a learning experience, and they won't necessarily exempt them from the project. However, you can talk to the individual teacher and ask them if they will do that. You know, because if you've got a group project, a lot of the time the project, they have to get up and present in front of the class. And, you know, if you've got a child that has, you know, anxiety, schizophrenia, schizoaffective, a disorder that is just very uncomfortable for them to be up in front of people, they may just try to avoid showing up for that particular class. It's hard enough for, you know, the average person to do public speaking, so let alone somebody with a disability. The other thing disability services will do for you is if you're have absences due to your medical condition, they will basically pause the work for you, and you're not going to get penalized for turning in work late. Now, when you get back to being on track or out of the hospital, you let the teachers know, and you start back catching up your work. But you can also, say for instance you got out of the hospital and there's a project due that day, you can ask them, can you have a couple of extra days to complete that project? And they will allow it. Disability services allows a couple of extra days for you to catch up your work. So overall, my experience with disability services has been fantastic. There's one more thing that you do need to remember. You have to let disability services know every single semester that your loved one is signing up, or they have to let them know that they're signing up for that semester, because they need to be aware that they're a student that semester. So this doesn't go for a whole year. The fact that they're enrolled in it does go for the time that they're at that college, but every semester that they're in, they have to let them know and let each individual teacher know that they're signed up for that semester. So if you have a loved one with a disability, even if it seems minor to you, ADD, ADHD, you have to have the paperwork for it. You have to show them that it comes from a doctor. But get them signed up, because they really need it. So advocate for them, help them along, support them, love them. Have a great day.